All right. Let me know if you can hear me properly. All right, we're waiting for Rafi. He should be coming on soon. So you all can hear me okay? Everything all right? That's good. Good evening, everyone. It sounds good. We got a new setup in the last few weeks, so I'm just getting used to it. Here's Rafi. He's just coming on. So we got a lot of people on. That's good. Hi, Rafi. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah, it's getting a little cold here, but it's nice. Nice day. But
It's getting exciting, Mario. I think this is the year.
yeah, it is, isn't it? And the title of the live stream, I always pick a title, is Endgame in sight for Fiat dollar as debt ceiling crisis brews, question mark. And I think there's a lot more that can hurt the dollar than just the debt ceiling crisis. It seems like a lot of people expect them to let it. They'll do only something when it's really necessary, but they think that there's a lot of complacency as well. I saw there's a guy from Goldman Sachs saying it could be as bad as 2011. Don't know if you have any views on that, on the debt ceiling situation. Apparently, the debt ceiling is going to be hit by the 19th of January, so next week. But they can keep running the government until June or sometime in the summer.
Mhm. I guess my thoughts on the debt ceiling are that it's probably not going to be the trigger to anything because it's so obvious, uh, and like they'll eventually solve it. Who knows how, or they always do, because they're all on the same team.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Oh, we've got Andy Scheckman on the chat.
oh yeah, cool.
He says, "Hello, my brother Rafi."
Hey
Yeah,
Andy.
Andrew, nice to see you. Or Andy, you've got yeah. Who else have we got? Pablo Pina. Yeah, I started a little earlier today because it's probably better for you as well, and for me, 9 o'clock. Finish at 10. For you, it's like midnight. So just thought I'd start a little
Yeah, it
earlier.
helps out a little bit, a little bit.
Yeah, and so let's share something here that you pointed out to this. I hadn't seen it come out, and it's from our friend Dan Oliver. I had Dan Oliver on this channel back in. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I had him back in 2020. So maybe, I've read this, you've read this. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what you think. It just looks like he's saying the Fed is going to be either they inflate or die, right?
Yeah, well, the thing I like most about Dan Oliver is that his knowledge of monetary history is so vast that he's like, most of us point to, let's say, the 1920s or 1930s, maybe as far back as the 19th century, or we've heard of the Mississippi bubble and John Law or something. That's 300 years ago, but
Yeah.
Oliver goes all the way back to, like, the what to
Ancient Greece, I think.
ancient Greece, like 500, 600 BCE,
Yeah.
and where he's seeing the same sorts of things. In the, in Plutarch, he quotes here. I haven't read these historians. I've read a little bit of Josephus, but he doesn't really
Yeah.
talk about inflation much. So it's the same stuff that's happened over and over and over again. There's nothing new under the sun. And there's nothing new of what's happening now. It's just global now. It's not in a specific country. It's everywhere because we are in a global society. So when the crash happens now, it's going to happen everywhere at the same time. The first
Yeah.
time ever.
Yeah, he talks here about usury, and prior to the fiat dollar, there was problems with usury as well, even when you had a gold standard here when he's talking about. So, he says the powers that be thought the best thing would be to go on a fiat currency system so you can create the debt out of thin air with the national debt. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's very interesting that he thinks now with, yeah, that's how much debt we have in the system. But he thinks that now with,
Yeah, it's this paragraph that I quoted that's very my kind of tone.
yeah, and he thinks now that with interest rates and yields going up and the money supply, he notes that M1 here in the beginning has gone down by 346 billion over a year. And the thing with this debt-based system, you need new debts to keep paying the interest on the debt. And when we had the bull market in bonds for the last 40 years, it didn't matter because the debt kept going up in value, the securities, and interest rates were going ever lower. But now it's reversing. And he talks also about how the Fed now is starting to, they're not paying any more money to the Treasury because they're earning like very low yields on the long-term bonds they bought, and they're paying the banks like 4%. So it's a huge problem. And he went over this. Maybe you want to talk about this one. I thought this was interesting, and this was just like a conservative estimate, right?
Yeah. What specifically are you talking about here?
Well, here the fact that he thinks if we have another recession, we could see the deficit increase even more for the government, and he's only taking like a 10% drop from current levels, but it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
He's being conservative here.
Yeah. He's taking conservative numbers and he's saying with those conservative numbers, it will be the end of the system as we know it. Not because they're going to let the pyramid collapse. They're going to print to preserve it, but as they print to preserve it, the value of the dollar is going to trend to zero. And then it'll be the same thing as the pyramid toppling. Instead of toppling, it just turns inside out.
Yeah, and he also talks about how the purpose of the Fed is to keep the government running, the Treasury. So that's why he thinks they're going to have to print. And this is what it says at the end here. Rhetoric from Powell and other Fed governors is higher yields for longer to slay inflation. The bond market does not believe it. Neither does gold, which has spiked from 1680 on September 28th to above 1900 currently. This jump in prices evokes surprising little commentary, suggesting we are early in the move. The miners have bounced well off the bottom, but not to the extent of the move that gold would warrant, again suggesting we are early in the move. The gold market spent 2 years shaking out those late to the party in 2020. Now it's time for the next leg higher. And I kind of tend to agree with him. I don't want to predict prices here, but the move in gold looks very good. And I think the bond market as well, the fact that the yield curve is inverting, is so inverted, is saying that they expect the Fed to do something.
Yeah, from interest rates, we see that the numbers are predicting it from the shape of the yield curve that already bond traders are pricing in the pivot that's going to come sometime this year. I can't see this going on another year. I mean,
yeah. And I just want to show the viewers and you as well, Rafi, I like to look at this chart here. It's the it's a long-term chart of gold since
starting in 1971.
Yeah, and it's logarithmic, and it just goes to show you that people might be saying, oh, gold is too expensive, but I think there's a lot of room on the upside nominally, not and also in percentage terms. And it looks like this looks like a little bit of a teacup. Looks like we're breaking the handle, even though you could say the handle is up here. But I think the key level, if you look at this is a quarterly, I think, yeah, quarterly. The highs for the quarter are around 1950. So I think if we can close, let's say by the end of March above 1950, it would be very positive. I'm not saying we couldn't go there this week, but what I mean on a quarterly closing basis, I think 1950 will be important.
So each candle is a quarter here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think the bear market from 2020 to 2022 is over. I think that's it.
Yeah.
This will be it. I mean, there is still some time to get some physical gold and silver, but I think it's getting to the end of this. I don't have that much time left.
Yeah, and I noticed, I went into town. This is like an anecdotal thing. I went into my local town here outside London, and there's a few jewelers. There's one that sells some gold coins recently. He's put out gold coins. And I asked the guy, have you got silver coins? And he said, yes, I've got them in the back. And I said, well, are they for sale? He said, no, I'm holding on to the silver. And this is from a jeweler. And we started talking.
Really?
It's almost as if he is like a stacker. He said, oh, silver is way undervalued. I'm not selling it. So I thought that was interesting. And the other thing that I noticed, I went on eBay. I usually don't do much on eBay. I used to do years ago, but I put I'll show you and the viewers this. I put a bid on these 25. These are what you call British junk, I guess. It's sterling silver. Pre-1920, all the coins were a 95 silver, except for the pennies, of course. They were copper. But 25 3 pence or threepence, as they call it, is the equivalent of just over an ounce. And look how much it went for, 46. The price of silver an ounce, the paper price is just under 20. So I know there's a little bit of numismatic value to this, but I still think this shows a better reflection of what the price of silver is worth. And for those of you who think, oh, it's dangerous buying on eBay, but if you got someone like this who's got 4,712 sales, I think that's you need to do your due diligence there.
eBay is going to be a little bit more expensive than you could get, say, like, I don't know, Miles Franklin or I like the First Majestic store. Yeah, but you'll get more recognizable silver, so it might be worth the premium.
Yeah. So let's see if we got some questions here. Mary, link to Oliver article. Okay, let's get the link to that. Dan Oliver.
I always tell my subscribers to read Dan Oliver when he comes out, because
let's see. Let me get it back up because I think I deleted it. I got it. Got a link. Oh, Rafi, I just wanted to ask you about, you've been following a little more that January gold situation. Are people buying more of that? I did see more of that.
There's been I'm checking it now. Hold on. There was another big buy in spot, I think, on Friday.
Oh, really? So they're
not as big. It wasn't like 1,200 contracts, but it was, let's see. There were 114 deliveries, and the change in open interest was 391 up. So that means there was 114 plus 391. So what's that? That's 400. That's 505 or something like. Yeah, 505.
Yeah.
So 505 contracts were bought, and the volume was 512, and 505 of that were new contracts.
Oh, I see.
So somebody bought 505 contracts of spot on Friday. That's still very big.
Yeah, that's like just under 100 million.
Yeah,
dollars worth.
It's the price went up. So
I'm gonna show it. Someone's asked about how far the dollar index could go. And again, I think the dollar index is kind of a bit of a distraction, but it has helped, gold. The fact that, I always thought that this high here from 2017, 103.82 was a major top. And because there's like a 7 to 8 year cycle, and I worked it from the 2008 to 2017. It's like 9 years. But of course, last year we broke above that, but it looks like it was like a bull trap. So, I mean, we could easily go back to 90 There's good support there, and even 80. So that's where I see the dollar index. But I think gold will do better than the currencies that the dollar is measured against. So because we're near all-time highs. I think in British pounds, gold closed the highest weekly close ever. In euros is starting to pick up. Even in yen, the yen has appreciated a lot. It's still near the all-time highs. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the dollar index, even though I think it's reversed completely here. And we could maybe find some support at par, but then maybe go to 90. And the thing is, the dollar index was created in 1973. I know it goes back before. I think they extrapolated it, but it started in March of 73 at 100. So here we are 50 years later, and basically, the dollar has gone nowhere, really. And that's why, and gold at the time, I think was $85 an ounce. So that just goes to show that this milkshake theory, in my opinion, is, it's interesting, but it doesn't really look at real money.
Yeah. So there is one thing that could bring the dollar index much lower. But again, it's not the dollar index that really matters. It's just an indicator of other things that might be important. But there's rumors going on now that the Bank of Japan could break even this coming week. I don't think they will. I'm not saying that they will, but like it's being discussed that among big banks like Citibank is saying that the Bank of Japan could abandon yield curve control this coming week before Kuroda, I think is his name, retires. And if that happens, the yen goes way up.
Oh yeah, and that will hurt the dollar. And the thing is, like when they lifted the peg a couple of weeks ago from 25 to 50, which is a big surprise, I said that I thought they're going to have to raise it again, and so it looks like they're even gonna just lift it, and that could hurt treasuries a lot, because the Japanese have been investing in treasuries because they were getting no yield in Japan, and also their currency was weak, so buying treasuries and dollars was good. But now everything is reversing.
Yeah, well, Japan is the worst offender of Keynesianism. I mean, they are way deeper in debt than the U.S. compared to their economy.
Yeah, it's almost 300%, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really crazy.
Yeah.
And if the Bank of Japan, if they take away yield curve control, then the yield on their bonds could jump who knows how high, like
I think
basis points in a day. And if that happens, then the Bank of Japan's balance sheet will be in tatters.
Yeah, let's have a look here, because some of the other Japanese government bond, some of the maturities, they're already way above, the 10-year. And I guess they do the 10-year because that's the ones that they have the most. But I'm bringing this up here from investing.com, and we can look at it. Hold on, share. So here we go. So this is the 10-year here. I think on Friday, it went up to 0.56 or 7. So, and but if you look at the 15-year, it's already at 113, the 20-year 136, 30-year 160. So this should be at least 1%. And the other thing, Rafi, we're seeing a lot of central banks have huge losses on their balance sheet. We saw the Swiss National Bank, the Fed's losing, the Bank of England. Can you imagine the Bank of Japan? They own more than half of all JGBs. It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, it's going to be a disaster for their balance sheet, which will be. But it's even hard to say what's going to happen, because their balance sheet is going to be in tatters, but the yen should appreciate. And that should bring the dollar down, even though the purchasing power of the yen should fall as the Bank of Japan's balance sheet has losses. So
The other thing,
we're headed into some quantum universe here. And
the other thing people don't realize, the Japanese government bond market is really important to the U.S. Treasury market, I think, and the European market. So I think Dan Oliver is right. The Fed is going to have to step in. They're going to call it not QE. They're going to say it's just to stabilize the financial market because of what's happening in Japan, I think, and they'll blame something that has nothing to do with them, of course.
Yeah. Does Japan have a similar scheme going on as to what happened in the UK when the pension funds there started to unravel because of the bond yields? Or I know Japanese government bonds have a lot to do a whole bunch of other systems that feed around it, but I don't really understand how it works.
I think in Japan, the government, there's a Japanese government pension, the Japanese government workers or postal workers, something like that, is one of the big, I think is the biggest pension fund in the world. And they've invested a lot in US treasuries and bonds abroad. And that's what's helped because their yields were so low. I'm not sure if they do these LDI in Japan. They might be doing that. So the other thing as well, if the dollar is dropping so sharply against the yen, a lot of those pension funds are going to be in trouble, and they're going to be rushing to sell, not just treasuries, but maybe gilts and European government bonds. So we got a question here from Joe O'Connell. Hope you're well. Have you got any thoughts on Petrobras 70% dividend? I mean, I held Petrobras. That's the Brazilian oil company. They have an ADR. And I got rid of it a couple of weeks ago because it broke some really key technical levels. And so I didn't like that. But I still got the dividend because I had it when it went ex-dividend. 70% is huge. So if you're okay with all the fluctuation in the price, and the political situation in Brazil is not great. So just to let you know, I got rid of that. We haven't spoke while we're just speaking about Japan. Someone's asking here. So let's see. Anyone looking at platinum now as a good buy? Any views on platinum, Rafi?
Well, platinum is like a pseudo money, but it's going to be a lot more volatile than gold and silver. And I don't know exactly what it's going to be worth in an endgame scenario because a lot of it is catalytic converter demand, and who knows what's going to happen to that industry once everything reshuffles. So I would hold a little bit of platinum just to diversify your metals, and it could be nice and interesting to own some, but I wouldn't really rely on it so much.
What about silver, Rafi? Is that supply coming off still, isn't it, on COMEX?
So I've been seeing that recently. I think in the last 3 or 4 weeks. I can check the chart, but it looks like we're starting to fall again.
If you want to share it, I've allowed you to share it.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I wanted to look into, there was a much more interesting chart here. Hold on. Let me just get rid of these tabs. Okay. So how do I share here? I'm allowed to share. Okay. So share screen over here. And this is gold charts are us. So if we go to silver, this I thought was very interesting because we know that silver bottomed around September. So if we look at the weekly chart of all silver holdings, right? All paper silver holdings includes SLV, all ETFs, all mutual funds,
COMEX.
all published, including COMEX. So they all silver bottomed around here where, let's say in this territory, right? You see here the light silver line.
Oh, that's the silver price, isn't it?
Right. This is the silver price over here. And still silver holdings have fallen since then. And that is very rare because if you zoom out, then you can see that they always generally climb with the silver price. And when the silver price falls, they kind of stagnate. This is really the first time that we've seen this where paper silver funds are liquidating silver while the price is rising. So something else is happening here, and it's not the paper traders that are driving the price this time, or at least they're not even following. They're left in the dust right now,
Maybe it's
and something else is pushing it up.
the apes, and maybe some big money guys as well.
Yeah, I think it's the big money guys, because as much as silver squeeze is important, I don't think it's that big globally at this point.
I agree, but like I told you guys earlier, I went to the jeweler this week, and 2 years ago he didn't sell any gold or silver coins, and now he's selling gold coins, and the silver he won't put out. So I think it's starting to become a little more public.
So here, if we look at the registered supplies, right, and zoom in.
Yeah, 6 months.
6 months. So you can see here, yeah, it's been steady since around the time where silver bottomed, or later around November, but we've been steadily going down again.
Yeah,
since the end of the year.
Yeah, it will be interesting to keep an eye on that. And I've noticed, last week when gold was taking off, silver is having a tough time go above 24, but it finally finished above 24 on Friday, like the spot price, I think about 24, 25. Fanta Naranja, any biblical takes from Rafi on gold and silver or anything else right now?
Well, okay. So, I was reading the book of Exodus. We just started the book of Exodus, right? So even, I've talked about this, that when the Israelites were about to leave Egypt, right? So before, when God is telling Moses about the 10th plague, before he tells him about the 10th plague, he's like, first tell the Israelites before this happens to go get gold and silver. Why? So what do you learn from that? Like, you have to stack before the end of the world, not during it, because during it it's going to be too chaotic. But the part about gold and silver was told even before that, at the very, very beginning, before Moses even sent to Egypt at all. And God tells him, like, you have to at the end of this, you're going to get the gold and silver. So what's the point of that? Well, I was reading a commentary that explained that it was really a real estate deal, because the Israelites asked to borrow the gold and silver. Why borrow it? Because originally their plan was to just leave for 3 days, but then Pharaoh kicked them out of the country and said, "Don't come back."
So they can't.
So they pretty much sold all their property for all the gold and silver, and they just made a trade. So it was the final real estate transaction. So Egypt was left with a bunch of houses and no property. So it was also kind of like a real estate bubble bursting.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Someone's saying here, talking about Rick Rule calls First Majestic hyped. He prefers Pan American silver. Well, I have to say I was a bit frustrated with First Majestic in terms of the price, not the company. So I got out of it, and I have actually got Pan American and Hecla, and they've done a lot better. I think First Majestic needs to get above $10, and then maybe I'll jump into it. And it hasn't really done too well, but I think it will eventually. What do you think of First Majestic, Rafi?
Well, it is one of my favorite companies.
Yeah.
And they do have a very nice silver store, and I have some of their bullion coins. Yeah. They're really pretty. But yeah, I bought more of it at around 750. Yeah, I haven't touched it in a few months, but I'm not too worried about it. I know it'll come back up.
Yeah. PM Galleria, thank you for your super chat. Aside from money printing, what is the level of the credit part of inflation here? Consumer credit is increasing, maybe corporate too.
Let's take a look. Well, it's consumer credit on Fred.
Bob Roast, thank you for your super chat. So we're gonna try. I saw that. I saw someone talk about this like on TikTok or something, that credit card debt and car loans are picking up again, and that savings are near all-time lows as well, or going down quite a bit.
Okay, so total consumer credit is at an all-time high. It's always at an all-time high until you get to a recession, then it collapses.
Yeah.
$940 billion.
Okay.
Oh, that's
I,
nice.
I mean, that shows me that, monetary policy is still accommodative, but it also shows that people are, they're not flush with cash. They're having to borrow.
Mhm.
Let's see here. Bible has all the answers, someone said. Tomorrow's MLK Day in the States. Yeah, it's a public holiday tomorrow, so the markets will probably be a bit quieter, but the markets in Europe are open, so I expect gold and silver will be open on the COMEX futures.
Oh, is Wall Street closed tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That gives me an extra day off. That's nice.
It used to be President's Day, but now it's MLK Day. Let's see. Oh, I've got some more topics here I wanted to cover. Let me see. I wrote them down. Oh yeah, M2 and deflation, or the Austrian money supply chart you look at. How is that looking? It's still really negative.
Yes.
Do you think it's going to start turning up? I guess unless the Fed wants everything to implode.
No, it's not going to turn up until they pivot. No, it's going to keep
Yeah.
going. That's what Daniel Oliver is referring to.
Yeah.
Keep going down
Yeah.
until until it causes some kind of storm, and then the Fed's going to have to print again. That's
Yeah.
what always happens. That's what happened in 2008 also.
Yeah. So Rafi, you grew up in Miami, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because someone's asking if you grew up in Israel. When did you leave the US for Israel? How old were you?
December 27th, 2007.
All right. So how old were you then, if you don't mind me asking?
I was it was 2024.
Oh, quite young.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys. He's been
So if you want to see the money supply situation,
yeah,
this is the chart. This isn't the chart that I generally look at, but it'll give you a good idea.
M2, yeah.
Yeah. So this is this is the year-over-year growth rate of M2. So it peaked here at it's like what is that number? Our pictures are
Yeah, I mean
it, but about 26% year over year, and now it's negative for pretty much the first time ever.
This is like this is not Goldilocks, is it? Steady as she. This is like someone being on a seesaw with someone and going like someone's gonna fall off and hurt themselves.
Yeah.
It's
so this is now it's shrinking year over year for the first time ever. You could say that it did barely in 1995, but like what was going on in 1995 and why didn't the economy crash back then? Well, the internet was getting popular, and we saw a lot of real globalization, and the trade partnerships that were starting to
NAFTA
blossom between America and China really picked up back then and really brought down the prices of goods and services and saved the global economy from disaster back then.
And also, in 1994, it was probably up until 2022, that was probably the worst bear market in bonds in many, many decades, 1994. And that's probably why M2 went down. The credit market was in trouble. Orange County in California went bust because they did derivatives with Bankers Trust. So there you go. Joker Alpha, I heard the CBDC is meant to be used for international transactions, not private banking. Rafi, have you heard of this?
No, I don't think it matters what CBDC is going to be used for. I don't think it's not going to come into major use because we're going to be done with the system before it can even be born.
Yeah,
I don't see it as a threat.
It feels a little bit like when they started here that 2.5 years ago or so, the lockdowns, and they're going, you have to have a track and trace, put on your phone, NHS app. And if you went to a restaurant, you had to sign in. I never did, and I never downloaded that app, and it never took off. And that's the thing; people have to just ignore it and not say I don't want it. And I think even in China, it's only an experiment. The CBDC or the digital currency, and they've done. And I saw recently someone that used to work for the People's Bank of China saying that it's not really catching on. even in China. So there you
Good.
go. Matthew is asking here, what does Rafi think the significance of the Bible mentioning gold is good in the book of Genesis?
Oh, you mean with in the beginning of the book, of Genesis, it says randomly that telling you where the Garden of Eden is, that it's surrounded by 4 rivers, and one of the places that are around the Garden of Eden, it says that the gold of that land is good. Like, just okay, like, who cares?
Yeah.
But it's to me, it's basically hinting that God puts in everything that man needs to create a society before he's even created, and everything is in place. All the birds, all the animals, all the land, and even the monetary medium is there for him to use if he figures out how to do it. That's all it's saying.
Honest weights and measures. I think that's what gold and silver are all about. And unfortunately, Greenspan thought he could replicate the gold standard with the fiat paper money.
Yeah, and gold in Hebrew is the word is zahav, which is very similar to the word in Hebrew for liquidity, which is zav, or a flow. So it's almost the same word.
PM Gallery, thank you again for your super chat. I do find bullion artwork as a hedge, investment, and way to stop confiscation for government. Well, that's interesting. It's a bit. I think a lot of the Asians or Indians, Americans call them Indians. Here it's Asians, people from India. The ones that are here, they buy a lot of 22 karat jewelry, and I think you can go to their jewelers, maybe somewhere in East London, or I don't know where, but and they'll sell you the jewelry almost for this. There's not much of a premium. Like when you go to a normal jeweler and you buy a gold chain, they put a lot on top of it. But so that could be a good way to buy gold jewelry from Indian stores. I'm sure there's Indian jewelers in the US too.
Yeah, there's also Peter Schiff has, I think, mene.com, MENE, where the premium is the design premium is very low, and you pay basically according to how much gold is in the ring or the necklace or whatever it is.
Yeah. Bob Rose, thank you again for super chat. BP, I asked this before, but will you ask Rafi? A banker-led privatization has led to higher prices and less services. Why is it different to the Austrian position that it benefits the consumer?
Do you understand what he's asking?
Not really. Banker-led privatization of what? I'm not sure. Does he mean the monetary system? But an Austrian monetary system would be based on the free market, and there wouldn't be a central bank, I would say. Don't you think, Rafi? Or if there was a central bank, it would be there just as how can I say, a central warehouse for the gold, not as an active thing.
Yeah, well, there could be a central bank. I mean, you could have the dollar system and the debt-based dollar system if you wanted, but just let people use other monies if they want to use that.
Oh yeah.
And one way that I've thought about this could actually work is if you just if there's a law that makes gold and silver actually legal tender and payment of taxes, then that makes gold and silver money directly, because you could just use it to pay taxes, and then nobody would have to use the dollar anymore.
Well, I think the key here would be to just abolish all legal tender laws, and people wouldn't want to take empty promises, like we have to take now, the paper money or the promise.
In the end game, they'll all be abolished anyway. It'll happen naturally, because you can't define nature forever.
Rafi, we got another passage here. In Zephaniah 1:18, it says, neither their silver nor gold will save them. Do you think there's a risk some of us see precious metals as our salvation? I'll answer that first. I don't see it as salvation. You have to be well spiritual yourself. You have to have, be nice to people, have look after your family and your community. And gold and silver are just like a tool to help you. I don't think it's everything. It doesn't save you. What do you think, Rafi?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it's gold and silver are not going to save. They can't save anyone. They are just like any physical possession can't save you. You can only do what's rational in the time that is coming. So wait, what verse is he talking about here? I'm looking at it.
It's Zephaniah 1, chapter 1, 18, verse 18.
18. Okay, so I'm reading it. Okay, so yeah, that's talking about Jerusalem. So I don't really know Tefania so well.
Yeah.
But I know that there are mistakes that people can do with gold and silver, like worshiping them, which is, you can't do that. And they are not gods, and the material is not going to save you. It's really being a good person and being rational and being grounded,
Yeah.
which what I think gold and silver represents, is being grounded in the earth and not somewhere in the fiat heavens where
Yeah.
you have trust in government.
That's a good point there. Grounded in the earth. I like that. Does the Fed buying up bonds and holding onto them until full maturity help reduce the money supply? In the beginning, no. If they're buying bonds, it increases the money supply, because by buying bonds, they buy it from, let's say, the primary dealers, the bankers in the markets, and they pay them with reserve money, and then the bank reserves increase, and then they can lend more, and it increases the money supply. But yeah, if they hold it to maturity, of course, then they might replace it with new bonds. What do you think, Rafi?
Does central banks holding onto bonds decrease the money supply? Is that the question?
Yeah, buying them, through QE and then holding them to maturity. But I think at maturity, unless they're doing QT, they would probably buy new bonds.
Well, in order to keep the pyramid going, meaning the more money they print, the more money they have to print, because the money ends up somewhere as somebody's debt. So the Fed has to keep buying bonds, and they can stop for a while. But then if they hit the exponential curve, then there's a financial crash, and they've got to keep going on that curve.
Yeah. That's the thing with the fiat currency system. It's a debt-based system. If you stop creating debt, like they have for the last 9 months, you see trouble, and you unless they want to bring everything down, and the government, they'll have to start inflating again. Metal Max 1970, thank you for your super chat, 400 yen. That's going to be worth more tomorrow, hopefully, with the yen going up. Steve Wojtas, thank you for your super chat. Mario, Rafi, do you think the lag effects of interest rates are priced into equities and stocks? Do you want to answer that? And then I'll add on something that I listened to the other day.
I think equities are going down from here.
Yeah.
They will continue going down as the money supply falls. And at some point, it's going to cause a waterfall and a Fed reversal. And then I think stocks will go back up to, let's say, highs or near their highs. But as they are reflated, gold and silver will go much, much higher.
I agree. And I listened to Liberty and Finance, and it was May, I think his name. I think it was yesterday, and he was talking about that. He was saying that I don't follow this equities as much, because I'm more, I look at the bigger picture a bit more. But he says the PE ratio is still at 18. He said usually when you have a bottom in the stock market, it's more like 14 or even lower. So he said there's never been a bottom in the bear market with the PE ratio as high as it is.
Yeah, but it just even simpler than that. If the money supply is shrinking, stock prices have to shrink on the aggregate. It doesn't mean there won't be rallies intermittently, but the trend will continue to be down until the Fed reverses.
Yeah. And I even think that some people think the Fed might reverse, not to try to get the stock market higher, but just to stabilize the bond market. So I think that's what Zoltan said in his latest writings. He said that QE now will be just to stop accidents in the bond market and control the yield curve. It won't be to drive up asset prices anymore, but we'll
Yeah,
see.
I think he's right about that. But it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why they're doing it. It means more money is going into the system. That's what it
yeah,
means.
yeah. Rafi, how much longer before all the fiat is abolished? Or it's difficult to know, but what's your view?
I don't know. Abolished.
Or I mean, just it just, I think it won't be abolished. People will just
I think
lose
it'll
faith.
just die by itself.
Yeah, people will realize that fiat currency is I owe you nothings, just like John Exter said. And it's
Mhm.
amazing that they've well, actually, there's the new Madoff, the monster of Wall Street. He started fooling people back in 1962. So it took like 46 years for his Ponzi to, be found. So we've had a Ponzi since 1971. So it might feel
Even
like
earlier. I think Oliver counts it from 1933 because
yeah,
1933 to 1971 we were on a gold standard, but it was a lie, which is why it broke.
mm, yeah. Americans were taken off sound money in 1933. Uh, James Hafford, I read there will be an increase in countries dumping U.S. treasuries. Who buys them, and what are the implications? I'll let you answer that, Rafi, if you want.
Somebody will buy them, just depends on the price. Initially,
Yeah,
no one's going to buy them unless the Fed buys them.
yeah,
This is also what Oliver said in his latest paper. The only
yeah.
one, the only figure, the only institution that will possibly buy treasuries at current prices will be the Fed. So if the Fed doesn't buy them, yields, the prices of these treasuries are going to have to go way down, which means yields are going to have to go way up for them to even begin to look attractive. But that's going to cause the collapse of the federal government, which is fine by me, but it's not fine for other people who rely on it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who rely on it. I think I was reading about the debt ceiling. Apparently, if the government shuts down, it's gonna. I think it's a guy from Goldman Sachs. He said the economy could drop by 10% because so many people depend on the federal government. Um, oh, here's BP again. He said, I meant a banker-led privatization of a company, utilities, leading to higher prices and less services. Sorry, ran out of space. I think he means like, is a private company better than, a government-owned or state-owned company?
Well, a state-owned company is just another license to steal.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think what's happened here in the UK, sorry to interrupt you, Rafi, is that they've done a lot of privatizations, but they haven't allowed these companies to be really private because they've interfered in them. Case in point was Theresa May in 2018. She put a cap on energy prices for the energy providers who are private companies. And then in 2021, and this was before Ukraine, when gas prices started going up, they didn't hedge, but they could only charge 10, let's say 10 pounds, but the price of the gas went up above 10. So 30 of them went bust. And it wasn't because of the market, it was because the government put a cap. So I personally think companies and businesses came before governments, and governments always ruin things, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's how society develops. Society develops and innovates, and then you have a culture, and then a group of thieves calls themselves the government and stations themselves at the most important points of the society, and then starts sucking it dry.
Yeah. Another biblical question. That's for you. You much
Right.
more. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 13, it mentions she who is she. Do you know who that? I think he's just asking.
Chapter 3, verse 14. Well, give me a minute to find it, and
Yeah,
we'll go on to the next question.
okay. Pension fund is buying. I saw another question here, and I think Zimbabwe is full of trillionaires. Yeah. Sir Isaac Newton's view as a royal master said all currency is 40% gold backed. Yeah, back in the 19th century, when Britannia ruled the waves and pound sterling was like the reserve currency, I think the UK banking system had roughly a 33% gold backing. I think Daniel Oliver has mentioned that, but he's got a lower proportion. I think it was 33, and I think the Fed had up until the 40s a 40% gold backing. If I'm
Okay,
not
so
mistaken.
the answer he was looking for is she. It's referring to wisdom.
Oh, wisdom. Oh, yeah. James Hafford is coming. She's a personification of wisdom and understanding.
Yeah, trading in wisdom is better than trading in gold and silver. That's true.
Of course. Uh, what translation do you use?
My own.
Oh, your own. Robert Barnesi, John Titus says 60% of the debt is in dollars. If petrodollar hegemony is lost and dollars dumped, how fast could all unravel? Yeah, I've had John Titus on the channel a few times. He's very interesting. Yeah, what do you think about that comment that all dollar debt could well, if dollar, yeah, it could be like the sovereign debt crisis we had in Europe in 2011, 2012. But who's going to bail out the US, Japan, Britain, and the EU? I think that's an impossibility.
We've already seen like three or many instances of the global economy being within hours of collapse. In the UK, they were saying that pension funds were within hours of being completely liquidated. So I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, there's going to be something maybe in Asia, maybe in Japan or something, and there's going to be some big movement in the currency market somewhere, and then everyone's going to say, "Oh my God, we're within hours of collapse," and if we don't if we don't move right now, everything's going to go to hell.
Yeah, and that's when they're going to have to print even more than in 2020, 21.
Yeah,
because the more debt we have and the higher interest rates go to, that's a huge problem. And I think talking about Japan, you mentioned there, I think this coming week could be very important to keep an eye on what happens in Japan. And because I think they've already done like $150 billion in QE in the last 2-3 weeks, which is crazy for an economy that size. It's a big economy, but not as big as the US, of course.
Yeah. So the answer as to how fast things could collapse, hours. That's how fast.
Yeah. But yeah, and then if the central banks come in with massive QE, I could see gold and silver going, and you wouldn't be able to get gold and silver. And I think for the bullion, there would be so much volatilities that people like Andy Shackman or other dealers, they would probably not deal because they don't know where the price is.
Yeah, well, what's going to happen to them? I wanted to ask Andy this question: like, what are people like him going to do?
They're going to go to the beach.
Gold and silver they're sitting on
Yeah.
In an endgame scenario. What happens? They basically they're going to turn into a bank.
Yeah, Andy Shackman is going to go and play golf and wait until it settles down.
Yeah, but that's when bullion dealers become banks.
Yeah, I think a lot of them are already, because they take, they store some of them. Some people like storing their gold. They provide the service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're going to say, you want gold and silver, so instead of dollars, give me a lien on your house or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Someone's saying here that they lived in Miami for 10 years near Calle Ocho. Do you know where that is?
No,
that sounds like that sounds like the Cuban neighborhood or something.
That's not my neighborhood. I was in Aventura, Miami Beach.
Miami Beach, nice. SMO, he says, I bought some sovereigns back in 2010 and the jeweler looked at me as though I was mad. He was selling me gold sovereigns 10 above scrap price. Would I love that now? I actually bought a half sovereign the other day. When I went out and I asked the guy if he had silver, the jeweler, and he had it for 250 pounds, which is a bit too much. I got him down to like 225. I always try to, bargain, haggle. And I checked online. You get it online for now, like from ATS or bullion by post is like 212 to 215. So I was fairly happy to buy it just from, the jeweler, a half sovereign, which is basically a half of a quarter of an ounce. But I remember the first sovereign I bought was about 50 pounds, and now it's costing 400. So to say that, the pound is a good currency, and
Oh, so by the way, there's a comment here on this verse
yeah,
of Proverbs. So logically, why is wisdom better to trade in than gold and silver? Because when you trade gold and silver, somebody gets the money and the other guy gets the goods and services, and now they have different, now they've traded and it's done. But when you trade in wisdom, both people get the wisdom and they both become wiser.
yeah, that's right. And when you trade gold, you lose the gold, I guess. Yeah. 100 ounces too big, nothing bigger than 10 ounces. We got a couple of minutes to go. We're gonna finish earlier today because I started at 15 minutes earlier. It's better for Rafi and for me as well, because in the winter, in the summer it stays, in June it's like 9:30, 10 is still daylight, but in the winter it feels like it's midnight here already. So my sovereign costs 410, but it's an Edwardian from 1905. It's lush, had to save for ages. Scott 49, 140. Yeah, sovereigns and Britannia's, Rafi, they're legal tender in the UK. So that's the other thing I heard from Oliver Temple. He's my affiliate here in the UK. I have a promo code with him, and I've dealt with him for, with the channel for 4 years. I used to deal with his dad back in 2002. He's retired now, but he was saying that one of the reasons a lot of people are buying sovereigns and also Britannia's is because the UK government is having the threshold for capital gains tax from April, from 12,000 pounds to 6. Next year, they're having it to 3. But gold and silver, there's no capital gains. Of course, they could always change that, but I don't think they will, because I think the very wealthy in the UK, the aristocrats, the people who own a lot of land and stuff, they own a lot of gold too. So I think personally, I don't think they're going to do it. Any view on that, Rafi? I know you're not here, but maybe you have an opinion on it.
On the aristocracy?
No, but the capital gains tax, that could they could, anything is possible with governments. We get a Labor government, then they could put capital gains on gold, coins of the realm. But
yeah, they'll try. Yeah. When they're desperate for money, they'll do anything. I mean, I think in the US it's already being discussed, like paper gains are being taxed, or they're about to be taxed, which is insane.
Yeah.
You don't even have to lock in to get capital.
So who's doing that
tax.
again?
It would just encourage more selling. But
so did you say that they want to do a capital gains without you
unrealized gains?
Yeah, where is in the US, is it?
Yeah. Wow.
I've
heard that being discussed. I don't know what stage it is.
Well, that would be, that's crazy, I think.
Yeah.
Just one more question here. Joseph Fury, hope I pronounced that right. Thank you for your super chat. Will we see hyperinflation or deflation? When will the collapse likely happen? Gold, silver breakout. I think hyperinflation and deflation is two sides of the same coin. It's going to destroy currency. And when that happens, you want to have gold or silver. When will gold and silver break out? I think it's happening right now. Rafi?
Yeah, hyperinflation is deflation. It's just hyperinflation is deflation in gold terms, and deflation is deflation in the currency terms. But either way, the purchasing power of gold rises in the same proportions. If you look at the gold priced in commodities, in real purchasing power, then the biggest jumps happened in 2008 as the dollar price was collapsing, because that's when the real purchasing power of gold was really climbing. So even though it's masked in deflation, which I don't think is going to happen, because deflation at this point means the collapse of the banking system and a default by governments. So we're going to see hyperinflation, not deflation. But either way, it's not going to make a difference if you're a stacker.
No, I don't think so either, because when you have a deflationary collapse, the government will go bust, corporations will go bust, banks will go bust, and fiat currency is going to be destroyed. And then the only thing left will be gold and silver, just like in a hyperinflation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mary, do you remember when the UK currency got changed to decimal? Well, I've been living in the UK since 1992, but I don't remember it, but I know that it was in 71. They changed from the 240 pence to the pound to 100. And I think it's interesting that it was in 1971, and they probably sold it as being more practical and easier. But I think it was kind of a reset, I think, because that was the same year Nixon closed the gold window. So I would have to say that inflation and prices probably rose quite a bit after that, and they did in the 1970s. So they masked that, I think, with the decimalization. All right, Rafi, thanks for coming on the channel.
Thanks for having me, and we'll put together a day that come on my channel this week, God willing.
Yeah, I'll come on your channel as well.
I want to talk about Japan. That's what's really interesting. See what happens this week.
I can do any day this week. Thursday, we're gonna go see Rudy, the puppy. He's not here yet, but we're gonna go see the breeder, and so we're probably going early afternoon. So I could still do Thursday as well, a bit later on. So let me know.
Yep, okay. I'll let you know soon.
And Rudy, his nickname, I think someone's got one already. It's Rudy the Silver Ranger. So, okay. All right. Thanks, Rafi. Take care.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.